welcome to Coffee with the Commissioner. I am Teresa Aronson from the St. Lucie County Chamber of Commerce. It's our pleasure, our honor to facilitate this event every single month. I think next month we're even going to bring back coffee and an audience.
Ooh.
I'm excited about it.
These cups will be filled?
I think the guys in the studio are as well, because they're going to get coffee. They've had no refreshments for 2 years practically, and that's not what they're used to. We feed them handsomely. But anyway, I am here with none other than the Board of County Commission Chair, Chris Sadowski.
Good morning, everybody.
And Chris, our Commissioner, our Board Chair, is going to introduce our special guest today.
Well, today we have from our planning department, Ben Balser, who actually is probably one of the most intelligent individuals that I've ever met.
I paid him for that.
He came in here and he came from another department, and probably within days he knew a lot of our regulatory issues in the planning side. And that was pretty cool. So.
And that is very true. Brent, I have had the pleasure of working with Ben through Development Review Task Force, which we talk about occasionally on here, but people get bored by it. But also, he came from ERD, environmental, and got right into that role in planning. And I would agree with you. Very, very intelligent. It helps because what people don't understand is they're not just interpreting, but you are, common sense is a huge part of planning and zoning.
It is, and
go ahead, Zaz.
And I appreciate the kind words, Chair and Teresa. Ben Balser, for the record, but
he's used to testifying before the commission.
I am the Assistant Director of Planning and Development Services here in St. Lucie County. I have the honor to represent that department, but you guys are correct. I did work for the Environmental Resources Department for 7 years, and it really helps knowing the background and the relationships and players within the county as part of the Development Review Committee, which the Planning Department chairs, but ERD, the Environmental Resources Department, does have a seat at the table whenever we're doing development review.
And I think it's important to mention what the Development Review Committee is when we asked, or you collaborated with the county, as did the building groups, developers, general public. There were regulations in place from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that just did not work.
All right, so to explain a little bit about Development Review Committee and Development Review Task Force, I can speak on Task Force. It is a group of stakeholders, the Chamber, TCBA, Realtors, EDC, and we work with staff to get to a point where we feel, the process for businesses, new businesses, expanding businesses, any business coming into a commercial space here in St. Lucie County or in your jurisdiction has ease of mind, that it is appropriate, that it's not going to be burdensome or overly taxing or even in some cases costly. But we do that in collaboration because the staff understands that the things need to change sometimes, right?
Yeah, I think to touch on your point earlier, we have codes that are written from, the 80s, the 90s, and they need to be revamped from time to time.
Yeah.
I think the Development Review Task Force is a perfect opportunity in collaboration with county staff, our administration, to look at those issues that are in the code and try to streamline the development, the permitting activity, try to identify areas of the code that we can shift that work for today's market. I know in St. Lucie County, and something that we've worked on recently are some, sweeping text amendments to try to improve the plan development process, which ultimately leads to better projects. There's more back and forth with a consultant and the developer. We can push for improved development patterns, and we want to do that in St. Lucie County. We want a better future, looking future. And try to make that process, the plan development process, a little bit more viable and attractive to future developers in St. Lucie County.
And one of the things that we focus on here is the environmental concerns. We are in a situation today where our climate is changing. We are more wet and rainy days and flooding and so on and so forth. And most recently, and I think we titled it probably incorrectly, is reducing our open space from 35% to 25%. But it was actually a process by which we actually gained more environmental positivity out of that process than just using a percentage of 35% open space. And do you want to talk a little bit about how that?
Well, let me, because you both are very intelligent, so I'm going to just bring this in for like general consumption.
Very good.
Okay. Well, we're talking about when you develop an area of land in the code, it requires you to have some open space because we want to be environmentally friendly. You don't want wall-to-wall concrete, whether it be a building or parking spaces. You got to have some open space, and sometimes it includes retention. We recently made a change that reduced the percentage of open space that you are required to have, but, and that's where it's going to get weedy for people watching at home, it really was an improvement, giving people, you actually, more control over how that overall project looks in the end.
Correct, and I don't want to get into the weeds,
I
but
know.
just for comparison purposes, if a developer was to develop under a minor or major site plan, which is the typical development pattern in St. Lucie County, there, besides landscape buffers and wetland preservation areas and tree preservation,
Mitigation.
there is no designated open space required by code. And we've processed, and the chair and the rest of the county commissioners have processed over 100 site plan projects over the last 7 years, let's say. In comparison, we've only processed about 6 plan development projects, which do have a requirement to designate open space. So what we're trying to do is actually an environmental benefit. Promote
Encourage them to
projects and
do that.
encourage plan developments where you have to designate open space.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to look at ways to incentivize those projects and ultimately lead to better development in St. Lucie County.
And people will say, well, why would they still do the plan development when they can just do a major site plan? Because the reality is it works for the applicant as well because they have more creative rights.
They do.
You have more oversight, you're able to require some more open space, but they have more creativity. It doesn't have to be block A goes up, block, they can really design something that might be appealing to them.
Definitely gives them more flexibility with building setbacks, spacing, height limitations, and just you can have a better project ultimately.
Yeah, I think that the people in that business would say they want to do the plan developments because it is very inviting even for the applicant, but some of the requirements kind of limited their ability to do that, and that's why we reduced the open space.
Yep,
Right.
and that was
And again, back to since we have done this, we have many, many more applications coming through the pipeline that makes a better development process. And folks from some other place, whether it's New York, Chicago, California, Texas, coming here, they all have their sets of regulations. And so when they come here, they're not really sure what we're doing. Oh, this is what I did back then. Well, we actually have a business navigator. We have a pre-planning process on which folks can come in and learn about the process before they spend a dime. And we've talked about this on other shows before, but that's really the important part that I hope people will take away from this today is make a phone call, have an appointment, do a pre-application process, sit with the business navigator, think about all the things that you want to do, and so that we can actually find ways to get to yes, as I say, find solutions before they become a problem.
That makes sense for everybody too. That means the citizens, the environment, and the business community. And even before you make your appointment with staff, which is totally free and they'll tell you about the process, we want you to come to the chamber so we can help you find the right place to put your business, then go to staff and figure out how to, and you're not paying a dime for any of these services.
And that's a big, big, big part of this. Right now, land is being bought up, so fast, and buildings are just going up and saying, oh, okay, well, it's for sale, well, let's buy it, it's big cash, and people are coming here from all over. But those who are coming from somewhere else may not understand what's zoned, what the property is zoned for, what's a future land use. Those are terms that sometimes people don't even understand from coming from somewhere else.
Those are tricky terms, but they are probably the most important when it comes to
What you can
development.
do on the
So
property.
Ben, can you help us out with what does future land use mean?
Well, future land use and zoning are basically a set of guidelines of what you can do on your property. If you have a future land use of, a commercial future land use with a commercial general zoning district, you are able to develop a commercial property or commercial project on that property. That's just one example. Your future land use will also give you, certain density, or in zoning will give you certain density for X number of dwelling units per acre. you have to develop under these specific guidelines. So a lot of people, they buy property on speculation of, we want to do this, but they don't really take a look at what is the underlying future land use? What is the zoning? Is it a viable concept that you have? So a lot of our time in planning and development services is taking those phone calls from real estate investors or developers and going over, parcel by parcel, what is actually able to be conducted on that particular property. We do a lot of, due diligence work with real estate agents and potential developers, and we have a planner of the day every single day from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You just have to pick up the phone and call. You'll be, hooked up with that planner of the day, and they can walk you through, what you can do on that property.
And that's important because people don't really understand that. They think this is a great location for my blank, and it may be that blank is not ever going to be allowed to be put there. And so people really need to understand that.
Yeah, and we field those phone calls where people buy things and don't do their due diligence, and they're left, in between a rock and a hard place. They have to either sell that parcel or come up with a different concept. So.
And I'm going to give you a couple examples of something that happened not in your jurisdiction, though, just so you know. But somebody had come to us and they wanted to do a daycare, and they wanted to buy a piece of property on the boulevard in Port St. Lucie. Those are too short. There's not enough frontage for the requirements of a daycare. So she would have bought that lot. She was in contract to buy that lot, and she was planning on building a daycare on it, but it was never going to be big enough for a daycare.
Yep.
And so we stopped her and said, you don't want to buy this. That's the program that we have through the chamber that's free to anybody that wants to use it. But thank you to the county and the city of Port St. Lucie for helping me fund that, because I've got to, I have a lot of people I have to consult with to be able to tell somebody that. I don't know that off the top of my head, typically.
Yep.
And then we had another member of the chamber that put in an offer on a piece of property that was not zoned and not future land use zoned for the type of business that she wanted to put there. And it was a very large building for a very lot of money. Oh, wow. And she was never going to be able to conduct her business out of that building.
Yeah, our goal is to try to eliminate those instances where people, shell out hard-earned money and then are told after the fact, no.
Yeah.
We want to prevent that.
Well, I think that your particular line of work is in the news a lot lately. It happened today on this show, but this show is going to air for the entire month. There was an incident recently in Miami-Dade with a collapse of a condominium on the beach, an occupied, and it looked fairly new condominium on the beach. But how does something like that come to happen in this day and age? And I think that's the question people are asking on national news. How does this happen in this day and age with regulations for hurricanes and structures and?
Well, I can say as part of the Planning and Development Services Department, we house the building division within that department. We have a building official, and he reviews all of our building permits for compliance with the Florida Building Code. The Florida Building Code has changed drastically throughout the years. I don't know the exact date on when this building down south was constructed, but we basically review something for compliance with the Florida Building Code, issue a certificate of occupancy, and then we do a lot of concrete renovation permits for structures out on the ocean. I don't know the particulars on what happened with this particular structure, if it was a deficiency with the structural integrity of the building, or if there was something else that had happened. But in St. Lucie County, we try to make sure that everything that we permit, we do make sure, because we're required by state statute, that everything meets the Florida Building Code and the minimum standards that are set.
And this is a terrible situation that has unfolded last month. And immediately the county went into motion to begin to look at different things that we do in the community, in the county, and possibly improvements may come through because of this situation. Miami-Dade Code actually came about from the Hurricane Andrew days in the 1990s, in which there were some very difficult things that occurred. And so when people complain about regulations and building codes and things of that nature, there are reasons for it.
Yes.
It's oftentimes a tragic incident has happened in which these changes have become necessary to change. Same thing with our planning department, changes a regulatory process of how we get buildings and business into business. But this particular situation is one of those where you're going to probably see significant changes come out of this. I come from the airline industry, and oftentimes, when there's an incident in the air travel industry, a crash, et cetera, changes happen through the FAA. And oftentimes it's not just one thing. It's a series of things that happen. And so you have to do that forensic review of what, in this case, the building, what happened. And a lot of information will come out of this through this month and probably the next 6 months.
I think this building was built in 1981, but it's important for our audience to know this is Florida statute. We don't specifically, in our county, decide the code. All codes are Florida, are state regulated and state imposed. It's our job to enforce them.
Yes, we enforce the Florida Building Code. Every county and municipality has their own building official, and they are the chief official that makes sure that everything that comes out and is permitted within that jurisdiction is compliant with the building code.
And it's always difficult as an elected official, someone who has a challenge, doesn't agree with the code or regulatory program, they'll come to us and be very assertive and want to have something done about it. And the unfortunate part is that, number one, not the unfortunate, the fortunate part of it is that the regulatory side of it is to protect that person or that company.
There are
and so on and
life
so forth.
safety issues.
And the individual, the building official, is a licensed official. And they could lose their license if they don't follow the building code. And so it's not against you as an individual, it's a bigger picture. And so when folks don't like the rule and they come to us, I'm sorry, but this is the Florida Building Code. And so we have to back it up.
And something that the building official told me that really hit home a while ago when I shifted into the planning world was that the Florida Building Code is the bare minimum for a safe structure in Florida. You can build above and beyond the Florida Building Code, but the Florida Building Code is based off just the complete baseline for a safe structure within the state of Florida.
I'll give you an example. Cheney Brothers is coming in to St. Lucie County. They announced it last month, and they're actually coming in to build their facility at a Category 4 hurricane level. So it's going to be much higher than what would have been necessary, and the reason being it's part of their business model. They have to be prepared. That building has to stand, and all the materials that are in it get distributed during a hurricane, feeding hospitals and
Emergency disaster and
exactly.
EOCs, emergency operation centers, all those linemen that come down from other states to try to help us get
Nursing
our
homes,
power
yeah,
back
sure.
on, and hospitals typically have generators, but we've got to get them back on power as well. So it's a good point that they can go above and beyond, and if it's part of your business model, which it would be depending on your service industry or your inventory. And so I totally get that. It's good news about Cheney Brothers coming as well. And it's also pertinent to remember it's Florida. We will have another hurricane.
And we're in season.
Yes.
I'm not saying we have one every year. Don't jinx us. I'm just saying we will have another hurricane in Florida. There's no doubt about
No
it.
doubt about it.
Well, there've already been 3 named storms last month, so that'll give you an idea. We haven't just got into the hurricane season, and 3 were named even prior to June.
I
so.
know, which is not a good trend.
Yes.
But we'll see how it goes. So, in planning and zoning, what does it mean for people locally, like the general public that's watching the show today, when you say planning and zoning to them? What is it that affects them on a daily level?
So, Planning and Development Services, the department, I like to say we take projects from cradle to grave. If you have a concept, as the chair mentioned earlier, we have a pre-application process. If you have a concept and you just want to talk about, I'm thinking about doing this with this tract of land, we have a pre-application process that you can come in, talk with the Development Review Committee, not to be confused with the Development Review Task Force,
I
but the
know.
Development Review Committee, which is made up of various county departments and outside agencies, FPL, FPUA, our county utility department, Public Works, our county attorney's office,
Oh, wow.
and ERD and Planning and Development Services. We all sit together, and it's a really good opportunity for people to have everybody at the table to talk about their concept plan and see if it is viable, and if they want to move forward with making a development application, pay the applicable fees, and take that all the way to the approval process. The Planning and Development Services Department is basically the quarterback of that DRC, Development Review Committee, and we disseminate all the information to the appropriate departments and try to make the process as smooth and as streamlined as possible.
And the other side of that is the general public often has to get a permit. Why do you need a permit? Well, it's to protect you, really. Do you have electrical work done? Do you want to have somebody who's just a garage mechanic and doing electronics work in your house and possibly cause a fire? The permit process protects you, making sure that the individual is licensed, making sure that the work is done properly, it gets inspected. Those are the types of things that those permits are for. I'm recently in the process myself.
You get a permit. How's it going?
I'm actually working on two sides of that. One for a friend who's in unincorporated county, and mine in the city of Fort Pierce. The one in the city of Fort Pierce, I got back in less than 12 hours, and the one in the county, less than 24 hours.
Very good.
So it's been an easy process. I started it online, and a lot of information there. And certainly, if you just make a phone call, if you're confused about the website, the links associated with it, just make a phone call. There's somebody that'll pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Ben.
I was going to touch on that. Our building permit activity, I just wanted to let everybody know that we're seeing post-2004 hurricane levels. The past 2 out of the 3 months, we've processed over 1,000 building permits, which is unheard of for St. Lucie County, over the past 6 years. So we're working very hard. We're keeping up with our level of service. We're actually trying to bring some new plans examiners and building inspectors on board here in the near future to accommodate our public and keep up that level of service. I'm going through it as well. I'm putting a new roof on the house. They just started today, so
But your
we're very
roofer
busy.
pulled that permit. You didn't.
Yes, I did not. I did not, but
Yes.
yeah.
So, but it brings up a good point for our audience is, the general thumb, and I'm not going to say this is completely the only time, but if you are changing something on the outside of your house, windows, doors, the exterior of your house, structure of your house, I can almost guarantee you need a permit.
Yes, ma'am.
Inside, things that may become a life safety issue, water heaters, electric, plumbing, things that can cause catastrophic damage, you're probably going to need a permit.
Yes.
But that's kind of I like to always give PSAs on the show, and that's the
That's
PSA
why you
for
should.
today. I know, I feel like we should. So general rule is that is how you should know you're going to need a permit.
Get a permit and work with a licensed contractor
Yes.
is my, is the big takeaway here.
Licensed and insured.
Yes, reputable, 4-star.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's a tough time. So we've seen this before. You mentioned 2004. We haven't had building permits like this since what people consider the big boom in 2004. There was a lot of not reputable people coming in to take advantage of our citizens when it came to building expansion, pools, roofs, window, shutters, all that kind of stuff. So we want to make sure that you do your due diligence at
Correct.
home. And then we hit the recession, and now we're in a huge upswing again. So I also, another second PSA of the day, what goes up must come down. So be careful when you're out there investing and trying to make, everybody's making changes to their home right now. So you might get lulled into a bad situation with a contractor. And I've had some friends that's happened to recently because the need is there, and so everybody's doing it. And so second PSA. Third PSA, are you ready?
Yes, I'm
I feel
bated
like-
breath.
Yeah, PSA.
I'm at the edge of my seat.
We've talked about land use here so much today, and I hope people understand that means that is the usable, allowable businesses or services on a piece of property.
Yes.
So when you move into a vacant lot or a house next to a vacant lot, do not assume the use for that vacant lot is vacant lot.
Yeah.
Because it never is. So second PSA is if there is land that is nothing on it and you are afraid of what might be on it in the future, go check to see what it is slated for.
Yes, and we have pretty amazing interactive maps on our county website. If you
Yes.
go to our GIS homepage. It's the Geographical Information Systems, and that is a division of Planning and Development Services.
Yeah.
But we have amazing interactive maps that you can click on all types of layers that'll tell you what the zoning district is for your neighboring property, future land use, what could be potentially constructed next door to you.
Yes.
So it's a good thing to plug. Do look at those maps prior to making an investment, because
Yes.
you definitely want to make sure that you know that information.
Yeah, because it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, the jurisdictions don't make changes or change use unless it doesn't align with the future land use. You know,
Yes.
they pretty much stick to that. So if it aligns with the future land use, it's probably what's going to happen
Yeah,
there.
we have a compatibility matrix where
Yeah.
you can request a zoning change if it is compatible with the underlying future land.
Exactly. And so they typically don't go backwards either.
Yeah.
It's never going to be reversed from commercial general to vacant lot.
Yes.
So please make sure that you look at that. Because I can't tell you how many times on my shows with the Coffee with the Mayor, we take live questions, and it's typically, why did you let this go next to my
I see,
house?
yeah.
And you have to say, that was always the slated land use for that vacant property next
Yep.
to your house, and we have no authority to stop it from happening.
Yes.
people don't understand that
if-
either.
I don't want to get too in the weeds either, but if a project comes in as a development application and it is consistent with the zoning and land use and meets all sections of the code, and it is a minor or major site plan, the board has a really difficult time not allowing that to move forward, because it does meet all of the applicable standards of the code.
Legally, they cannot and
Yeah.
will be
Well,
challenged.
and that's a good point. You know, oftentimes the commissioners are the face.
Yes.
And so it's, why can't you do this for me?
Yes.
Well, because the property rights mean something.
And legally, you can,
And-
yeah.
And under Florida statute, and the state of Florida is very, very strong on property rights. There's only 2 times in which a 12-person jury exists. One's for capital murder, and the other one's for a taking, taking of land or Bert Harris claim. So that's the only time that there are juries of 12. So it's very, very high in the level of importance for the state.
Yeah, it is something that people need to be aware of, and so hopefully they'll take those 3 PSAs away from
Yeah,
today. I mean,
those were
hopefully-
great.
Okay, good. Anything else we need to add, or we want to make sure people are aware of going on in the whole land development world? We have some great projects coming in, and we talk about targeted industries. And why do we have targeted industries? Because those are the industries that are going to make a marked difference in our economy, and maybe increase our minimum wage, or
Yep.
our average wage, not our minimum wage, I'm sorry, average wage. And why do we want to increase our average wage? Because everybody I talk to at the Chamber of Commerce asks me where the heck their cheesecake factory is.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
Yes, and I tell them, once we meet the demographics of what they consider their cheesecake factory family, we will get one. And
Yes.
part of that is an average wage. It
Yes.
has to be at a certain level.
Yep.
So I always have to field that one too.
Well, I'll go ahead. We have seen drastic increase in the number of targeted industry permit applications, buildings, planning applications over the past 4 years. We've processed numerous economic development incentive packages for projects not only within unincorporated St. Lucie County, but City of Port St. Lucie, City of Fort Pierce. You mentioned Cheney Brothers. We just brought that to the board last month. We have FedEx and other large workforce developments that are moving forward. Our 2 boat manufacturers on St. Lucie Boulevard, they just made application within the last week to process their second phase. Maverick is looking to, their second phase, which is 106,000 square feet of additional manufacturing space, and then Pursuit Boats is right at about 100,000 square feet of an expansion there. So, they were originally approved, I think, back in 2018 for 700,000 square feet, but they're doing some tweaking on how their buildings are laying out, so they have to process an adjustment.
Okay.
But
this
but
is
that's
where-
that's a really good sign,
Yeah.
that people are expanding and wanting to, be here in St. Lucie County, and the jobs are coming.
And this is where I say, if you want a job, you can get a job. Career Resource center is really a place to go and seek a career, not just a job, a career.
Yeah.
It's really important to get out there now because those jobs that are going to be paying. The Cheney brothers said 55,000 was their median,
Wage?
wage scale. Yeah.
Whoosh.
So we're creeping up there. When I took office, I think the median was around 26,000. Now we're more than double that. So it's a time to go get a career.
And so, from your lips to, because I don't know anybody in town that is not looking for employees right now. We're having a
Yep.
real struggle with that. So hopefully that will change in the very near future. But it's important for people to understand that these projects, these things that we bring in, not just gives them their cheesecake factory, that I'm being glib, but it really does change their quality of life. When you look at this bedroom community of Port St. Lucie, which was built to be a bedroom community and had, very little infrastructure or plans for commercial property, 80% at one time of the residents were leaving to go out of county to work. And now we've got that down to 60%, which
Yeah.
means more resources for our people in terms of roads, parks, and all the great things that give you a quality of life.
Yeah, and it's better to recycle your dollars in your own county.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so-
Circulate those dollars
Yes.
here
Yes.
because they might come back to you. You
Absolutely.
never know.
Yeah, we want to
Well-
import money.
Yes, import money. We've run out of time, but I want to thank Ben for being with us today. And
Thank you,
of
Teresa.
course, Chair Zadowski, it's
Aw,
always
thank
nice
you.
to see you. I like to spend this time with you. I like that I get to do it for a whole year and then somebody else comes, but you'll be back again.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
yes,
We hope.
the year just started. I want to thank everybody here in the studio, Mike and Stefan, the people that work in the studio. There's not much of an audience. But most importantly, I want to acknowledge A&G Pools. Art and Sandy Allen have been sponsoring the show for a couple of years now, and they do it without much fanfare or adulation, and I really need to make sure that they get a little of it. They're so community connected and community involved and community supportive that I really want to take a moment to just thank all of them, Travis Leonard as well, over at A&G Pools. With that, I will say goodbye till next month, everybody, when we're going to have coffee. I'm going to get cafe con leche back from Mervis, I promise you,
Ooh,
at least for
wow.
one time. And then, of course, the studio audience, please check All Things Treasure Coast for a full listing of everything going on in the community. That's allthingstreasurecoast.com. Sign up for their newsletter so you never miss out on any special events or programming. And of course, you can check stluciechamber.org for the next taping of this show or one of our many others. Have a great day, everybody.